Hey guys, today I'm going to take you on a tour of my kitchen garden. You may be wondering, what's the difference between a kitchen garden and a regular garden? It really comes down to three things. The first is location. As the name implies, your kitchen garden should be as close to the kitchen as possible. This will allow you to use it quickly and efficiently when preparing your family's meals. The second is size. Kitchen gardens are often substantially smaller than sprawling backyard gardens because they're typically filled with the foods that you will be eating fresh rather than preserving or storing for later. Third is looks. Kitchen gardens are made to be admired. They're designed to be as beautiful as they are utilitarian. My space consists of four 4-foot by 4-foot raised beds that are 12 inches tall, along with one 4-foot by 8-foot raised bed, which is also 12 inches tall. I've also included a few planters and an urn with annual flowers to provide a pop of color. Along the back of the garden space, I have a narrow flower bed against my house. It provides a beautiful backdrop for my garden. In the first garden bed, I have loose leaf lettuce, rainbow Swiss chard and giant Swiss chard, beets, which I use mainly for the greens. You'll see one lonely dill plant on the right nestled in with the beets. I brought it home from the garden center and didn't have anything to do with it right then, so I stuck it in there. I will move it. On the back, on those small trellises, I do have snow peas. Tucked into the front, I do have a few petunias. Before this bed filled in, I thought it was looking a little bit sparse, so I put those in there just to give a shot of color and fill it up a little bit. I'll probably move them now that the lettuce and Swiss chard and beets have come into their own. Everything in this bed will be done growing probably by about mid-July. The lettuce may not even make it that long, although it is a slow-to-bolt variety, which is important, especially if you're going to be planting it in full sun in the heat. When these things are done growing, or when they're not performing to the extent that I want them to be, I will repurpose this bed. I will either plant more beans in it, more beets, or I may hold off for a month or so and plant my garlic in this bed. In the second bed, I have jalapeno peppers as well as green peppers, and to the left, I have Tiny Tim tomatoes. On the back, held up by tomato cages, are giant beefsteak tomatoes. If they grow as tall as they've proven to grow for me in the past, they may need a taller trellis later in the summer, but we'll see where the summer heat takes us. The Tiny Tims have proven to be one of the most productive plants in my garden year after year. Although they're tiny and they do only grow 12 to 14 inches tall, they are the sturdiest, strongest little plant, and it is unbelievable how many tomatoes can grow on these little plants at one time. Now the third bed, which is personally my favorite bed, has green bush beans, yellow bush beans, and purple bush beans, which interestingly enough, when they cook, they do revert back to a green color. So it's kind of fun for my kids. It's almost like a mystery. A purple bean goes in the pot and a green bean comes out. I have these plants, as you can see, spaced very closely together. Because I am using raised beds, I'm following a very loose version of the square bed method, and I have about 9 plants per square foot. These will probably also be done growing by late July, and so when the lettuce bolts in my first bed, I will plant some more bush beans. Along the back of the bed, you will notice standing tall above those bush beans are the Brussels sprouts. As big as these are, they still have a long way to go. I do have them also crowded in quite tightly. There are, I believe, 10 plants in that 4-foot by 18-inch space. As they continue to grow, once the Brussels sprouts start to form, I will be removing those lower leaves to allow more growth to be concentrated in the Brussels sprouts as opposed to the greens. So at that point, it won't look quite as tight as it does in there now. My 4-foot by 8-foot bed
is not the fullest looking bed right now. It has a fairly motley assortment of things going on, and although it looks a little bit Spartan right now, I assure you there are lots of great things happening below the surface. So first I have broccolini right up front. We have some kale in behind it. And to the left and in behind that there are some carrots. I just kind of sprinkled those out and let them fill in where they wanted to. And I probably will reseed some more carrots as these ones grow, just so I have some later in the season as well. In behind, lettuce. Again, I had extra lettuce that I was pulling out or thinning out of my first bed, so I just moved them and tucked them right in front of these tomatoes that are going to provide them the shade that they really need during that hot summer period. In the back, I do have a new variety of tomatoes that I'm growing, which are a more determinate bush type of tomato. So I'm curious to see how these guys work out. There are some chives growing in there as well. And to the right, on the side that doesn't look oh so filled in, I have recently just planted zucchinis and cucumbers. So although it doesn't look like much right now, within the next 2-3 weeks, that entire space is going to be filled in with these crawling cucumber and zucchini vines that usually grow really, really well for me and produce beautifully. As you can see, I do have 2 stakes on either side of the tomato plants, and about every foot or so I have a screw that's only partially screwed in. This is allowing me to put wire or twine to hold up these tomatoes. Now for the last bed, it's not pretty, but again, there are a lot of great things going on under the surface here. This is my asparagus bed. It's my second year having an asparagus bed. So these crowns, these asparagus crowns, are only in their 3rd year. So I was able to lightly pick the asparagus this year. And once these stalks became less than the width of a pencil or less than the width of my pinky finger, I let them grow. Some of them have toppled over during the wind. I am just letting them be. I do not want to cut these off until they have yellowed and shriveled a little bit. These ferns that they've now become are strengthening that crown below the surface. So if I were to cut them off now, although they may not be the prettiest looking plant right now, it would inhibit the growth of those crowns. To fill in that bed a little bit, I have to be careful what I put in there because I do not want anything to mess with those asparagus crowns. But I did put in a little bit of basil as well as some parsley along the back. Both of those plants are good companion plants with the asparagus, and they won't harm that root system. I did install a drip irrigation system this year. It's a very, very simple system. I was able to purchase all of the parts that I used from Amazon, although local building centers or garden centers will probably be able to provide you with the same products. Mine are almost exclusively Rainbird products. I do enjoy them. I've used them in the past in different areas of my garden, and I really liked their functionality. I liked their ease of use, so I've stuck with it. I have a very simple system. I have drip tubing with emitters every 18 inches, and I have them snaked through each of my garden beds. I did this before the plants came up. This is super important. This is not something you want to be doing and trying to weave these in and around your plants. So the drip tubing snakes through each one of the beds, and once it reaches the end of the bed, there is an elbow connector. And then I've used distribution tubing because I don't need the emitters to be in my pea gravel. So then I have distribution tubing bringing me from one bed to the next, which I have dug down underneath of my pea gravel. I left some of it exposed so I could show you what it looks like as it travels between those beds. So I have it running from one bed to the next, and then all around the back alongside my house where I have that narrow flower garden. From there, it goes to the timer, which allows me to set it and forget it, or I can manually choose to water whenever the urge strikes. I really hope you've enjoyed this tour of my kitchen garden. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below and I'll do my best to answer it. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.